broadcasting to you from Saturn, Israel, which is currently have been quasi conquered by Schwab, and we try to live through this. So this is a well, it says here Venus, but it's actually already a Mars night and Venus hour with the ascendant ruled by Mercury, ascendant in Gemini, 21 degrees, with Mercury in Scorpio in the sixth house, Mars in Scorpio in the sixth house. Um, in the midheavens, Jupiter ruled with Jupiter in the 12th. So 6, 12, and it's no wonder I opened it with the Schwab thingy because Schwab is related to the 6, 12th, which is the axis of not only pets but also service to the world, like sixth house, but also physical health and mental health. Oh, vertex is here, conjuncting the sun on the 11th degree and moon on the 22nd degree in the second house, applying to oppose Pluto, but also applying to conjunct Procyon and squaring Eris. So, and the nodes. So, now the topic of this episode is actually Saturn going direct. And Saturn is going direct in a couple of hours, actually. For us, it will still be the third, and for some of you, you will wake up in the fourth to see it, or it's already the fourth for you. But very interesting, the degree of the moon, the degree of the sun. Yes, I talked about Schwabland. Well, Saturn has gone retrograde in Pisces at about March. It entered Pisces, if I remember, at about January. And so the very week that Saturn turned retrograde, we had two cases, two ships drowned. One was expedition to the Titanic with very rich people, and everybody were looking for them, but unfortunately did not find anybody. And once they did, people were already dead. It was implosion. And the other one was a refugee ship, and not only people did not look for the refugees, but they locked them so that they can't run. And so they drowned on purpose. And this juxtaposition of two ships and their very distinct faith, but also very similar faith, is something that I can't it's very interesting, okay, because two ships, two vehicles dropped underwater, and so one was ruling refugees that were unsought for, and one was ruling, well, had a lot very rich people in it. They were going on an expedition, and perhaps did not assess the risk, although they knew there is a risk, but they thought it was probably going to be okay. And I remember that as that was talked about, all the while, yeah, I think my cat wants to go out. All the while, now we are heading to this very pivotal point of Saturn about to go direct. And remember that its retrograde point has been allowed, and now it's direct point. So it's those distinct points, because it was farther down. It was, I think, 7 degrees Pisces when it went retrograde. So now it's taken us all the way to the ingress of Mars into Pisces. It doesn't go into Aquarius back. And tropically speaking, of course. Um, so it's not going to go over the retrograde point until it leaves the shade period. And so we have some time for that. But we can't say that nothing happened in the world. And this Mars is also ruling Pluto. Pluto that's already direct in Capricorn is also ruled the Pluto return for the United States. So United States has left the Pluto return sequence almost completely, but it's no longer touching on this degree. United States has crossed its very first Pluto return. So in what we call modern history, I think it is the first country that we see in one, from one declaration of independence all the way through to a Pluto cycle. I don't think that I can summarize this now. And the US is heading to, to the Uranus in Gemini, but this has been an event. Okay, we still have the United States standing, very turbulent, but it's like there is a United States, and there is a dollar, okay, and that is. I can't say that all the dangers are away because the situation for the United States is horrible, but there is a country, okay, which is not something we should take for granted when we think about it astrologically. So that was something that happened during Saturn being retrograde, the finishing up of this touch point, and now as Saturn is about to go direct, we can expect actually more of the signification of Saturn to arise. So Saturn is both limitations but also rest. Limitation is not just you have to work hard, you have to work efficiently. Okay? And I say this as a girl who has been told this when I was cleaning the house or doing something of the Saturn that I'm supposed to do. And it's my out of sect planet. My mom would tell me, listen, it's not just about working, working, working. It's not good. This is also lazy. You need to work correctly. Okay, this is a very Saturn perception. If you just work to do the job, to get the job done, and you're like, oh, I just want to go through with it, so I'll do it now, and you don't stop and you don't reconsider and you don't revise and you don't rest in between, then what you're ending up with is Saturn asking you to revise, or there's some sort of loss. And so Saturn requires tending to things, but when you get the tending to things, you understand that it is about moving slow and steady. It's about climbing a mountain. It's a marathon, but it's more like climbing a mountain. And in those areas in your life where you're climbing a mountain, you tend to, then when you let go and you work slowly, then you also have the time to continue on working, and you also have the diligence and the dedication, which Saturn does require. And so if you think about other things that Saturn rules, so bureaucracy. When it comes to bureaucracy, delays are a part of the things, because what is bureaucracy? You are dealing with hierarchic structures. And with Pluto and Saturn, you're dealing with hidden hierarchic structures. Okay? And so every time you file your tax report, it's not just about finishing the numbers, press a button and send it away. It's like, what is happening with my taxation? Where is it going? If I need housing, if I need assistance, if I need transportation, how accessible it is to me, the person, okay? Or let's say Saturn also rules teeth, nails, hair, okay? Um, every time you get your teeth checked, okay, what is affecting my teeth health? Is the toothbrush that I'm being recommended actually good for me? Okay, Saturn takes time because it requires looking into things that are say responsibility is a word that how should I say it? Because if you look about hierarchic structure like religion or institutions, these are made of people and they're supposed to serve the people. So we, the people, need to stop and observe. Is this serving me? Is it accessible to me when it's not serving me right? To be a bit of a Karen, okay? To be a bit of a, hey, that is supposed to be more accessible, okay? So if my dentist is just putting stuff in and want to put it in my teeth, I'm like, wait, what are you doing? What is this stuff? What is it made of? Okay, and they have to tell you. So a healthy dosage of of being a little bit pedant is required with Saturn. And you do it slowly because it's tending to things, and those delays, they have a lot of meaning. So Saturn retrograde, while it does delay more, because you revise something, you also understand Saturn from a deeper point of view. So when it is direct, you get the fact that you had some time to revise the structure, and now there is a certain structure. And this structure is requiring things of you. So when Saturn goes direct, you see what is yielding from this structure. Okay, now is the time where you have assessed, have changed, and you're moving forward with whatever you have. And with Pluto, there is a deep rejuvenation going in anything Capricorn. So Capricorn is mountains. Capricorn is your 401k, okay? It's the type of investments that are supposed to yield across time. Okay, it's a slow-moving planet. It's looking at what undergoverns, because there's Pluto there, what undergoverns those changes that we see. We're told, oh, you save money, you work, you save money, you invest money because money makes money. But then every once in a while, there's going to be some sort of a crisis. There's about every 20 years, 30 years, if you're lucky, 40 years. That is going to come crashing. And so you're supposed to buy this idea that you're working, saving money, hardworking, and you invest in this money. So you're doing both the making money and the investing the money. You're investing smartly, and then comes the time and you're busted, basically. And every couple of decades or so, this happens. Okay, if you are a millennial, then it happened while you were in your 20s or in your 30s. And so now that it is happening, you're like, oh, that thing happened quite a short while ago. And you also look at who is standing and who is not standing, and what should we do about this? Saturn also ruled people like elderly, like homeless people, also people who stand out, who are in marginalized in society, like the Aquarius archetype. Okay, not necessarily like the Aries archetype, but like the Aquarius archetypes, the people who take the time to reflect on the structure and they stand out. Okay, they don't like, or they even understand that to reach the top, you need to do it from the outside, and because nobody's going to open the doors for you from the inside, which is what you find out in Capricorn. Okay, in Capricorn, you climb up the ladder, and then you find out that you are required to work more and more hours. As hustle culture, people higher up the ranks seem to be suffering more even. And then somewhere along the line, you go from Capricorn to Aquarius, and you're kind of like, well, if I want to be the CEO, I really need to run my own company. But this is something that's not done from an Aries CEO level, entrepreneurship level, but done from a social stand. That's like, we need a different humanity. Okay, I believe this different humanity. Okay, and it's comprised of both genuine desire to do something different, ideology, okay, and an understanding that within the Capricorn structure, I will never both get to the higher rank and enjoy the win. Okay, so you begin to stand out, and now you are the person who has taken a job of, let's say, uh, something that other people don't take, or you have like, oh, you went to this and that university and now you're doing your cashier at the 7-Eleven. What is wrong with you? I was like, no, I am planning the next revolution, but meanwhile I'm working at the 7-Eleven. Or you're completely, or you're squatting and you're invading houses that are abandoned, and kind of like open, like look for the that you could draw into your community, and basically be a leader that can later be even tyrannical until the next revolution. So Saturn rules both these archetypes. Okay, it's the person that tries to climb a mountain and say, well, if I want to be in a higher position, then I'm going to go by the book, as well as read the books of the laws of power and do that. And in Aquarius, you kind of like, it doesn't, something there doesn't work for you, but you haven't given up on humanity. Instead, you want to do another humanity. Okay, so a very radical notion, but it's very dogmatic as well. It's turning, it's very structured. It's just structured outside of the structure of your. So with Pisces, we have, first of all, the lack of borders. Okay, we have a world, or we have a cosmos, and there are no clear boundaries or borders. Yeah, open this episode with the saying, I'm casting from a place that has currently been semi-conquered by Schwabland. And this is the most accurate description of what is going on. In Netherlands, it was cows' farts. In Maui, it was quote unquote natural disaster. Okay, it's obviously not how you treat natural disaster. Even if it was natural, you don't besiege a city natural disaster, right? Um, and it definitely not cut their net out. It in a situation where they can't even report on what's going on. And so you understand that if you have a couple of years slaughtered and many people, like 200 people, children, men, elderly, being kidnapped, then if they say they are underground, then perhaps bombing the places where your kidnapped people could be might not be the, you know, and definitely like from that to 10,000 civilians killed on the other side, but still the people you say you want to kill are most of them still alive. Okay, you understand that this is not really a political conflict. There's something else going on underneath this puppet show. And in the meantime, people have been evacuated from their homes in both Israel and Gaza. Where they've evacuated these people to Mount Sinai, which was the resort of Israelis that they went to when they wanted to relax. So you understand this is not a desirable destination if Israel wanted to transport or displace. Speaking about transporting and displacing, another thing, another displacement is currently happening is of Afghani people. And so with in Afghanistan itself, we've seen in the past year and a half very drastic oppression. Go to parks, they cannot freely walk in the street without burqa, and they cannot be a part of the government. And this situation is now creating its implication very quick, very drastically. And now Afghani refugees that lived in Pakistan are being displaced. Okay, they're being expelled out of Pakistan. Okay, it's exactly as Gaza and Jabalia. Okay, you don't expel people by bye bye. Okay, they will resist. So you have to maybe you bomb them, maybe you perform a genocide in them. You cause them to go away. You don't just expel them. They don't just go. Okay, the refugees that have been living in a long time, they don't really have a place to go. And so we've seen again the situation is more holistic, which is another Pisces feature, where people have been mistreating certain segments of the population, it's LGBTQ and women, which is also land. And then the next situation is that men are going to be displaced and lose land, basically, lose ground. This is what is happening, but we only hear about it when the men are there. About Afghanistan, I only knew about it from a solo traveler who said what are the countries they felt least safe in, and she talked about Afghanistan amongst other countries, and she has been more than once to Afghanistan, and she saw how the situation got so horrid, and it's right beneath our eyes, okay? But then we understand that the point here is displacing, is basically performing, this is a genocide, okay? You don't displace people by just telling them, well, bye-bye, that's been, ta-ta. You really have to enforce it, and that in praxis means a genocide. You do not be mistaken. So Pisces is both that displacement, isolation, exile, refuge, people going missing. But it's also that inner corruption where you both need to look at things holistically to understand what's going on and see the hidden patterns. It is a sign that is ruling also the hidden, but not from a Pluto perspective. Pluto is more like a change from the core and then exposure. With Neptune, it is more like something, it's more like you think about before tsunami waves arrive, then you basically have withdrawal, 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 withdrawal. And when you see that much withdrawal of the sea, of the shoreline, you know that the wave is coming. Okay, this is Neptune. Okay, Neptune, it draws you, it draws back, and then you see it's going to come. You can actually feel it energetically. So there is fluids, there is waves. Okay, the word waves is very big, and there is the hidden, and there is what seems to be a camouflage. Okay, you think the sea is going backwards, but it's actually intending to attack you. Okay, it's not like he's attacking you, but it's going to be a fluid. And there's something very natural that happens there. It's the forces of nature. Okay, it's a very, very slow moving planet. And with Neptune, you just surrender to it because there's not much you can do unless you had time to respond when the sea was going backwards. Okay, like, and and that is how Neptune can be highly misleading. Okay, Neptune is in Pisces, is co-present with Saturn. This is not just the Jupiter of like, hey, alcohol and drugs. This also exists. But it's really the god, Poseidon as the god of the sea, and the many things in the currents that happen in the vast ocean. We can't really distinct. Okay, think about maritime borders. Okay, if you sail, you really need to have some computer to tell you the maritime borders because you wouldn't know. It's like it's a very big ocean. Okay, it's not land. And yes, Saturn does rule in Pisces is also the structures or the hidden structures or the perceptions of time. There have been new perceptions of time since Saturn ingressed into Pisces, which is not surprising. So scientifically, that's interesting. But it's other dimension and the structure of um, the malleable reality. But also when it comes to alcohol or to drugs or to medicine, then the blending of the medicines, okay, holistic view, okay. Neptune is kind of like there's some mystery, and when it pops up after a very long while because it's a very slow moving planet. And again, I'm called to Neptune here more so than just Jupiter. Jupiter is the traditional ruler. But with Pisces, we really talk about some people, Neptune. So things, even antiquity and floating onto the surface, is very difficult to interpret things, and you just have to surrender in many cases. But also, if something pops, you learn about what's the connection. Okay, let's say if Saturn rules homeless people or refugees, then what is happening where people are in these situations and they're being offered to take either this drug or that drug? Okay, both people try to recruit them to organized crime, and organized crime will operate maybe through your local pizza. Okay, so now you begin to see the underlying connection of like, oh, I understand why all these works that I was trying to do was not working, or people thought all kinds of things about me that are not true. It's like, oh, maybe I worked at a pizza, or I worked in a grocery store, and it's like, well, these places are more susceptible to be a part of organized crime because they need money laundering. And what do organized crime do? Well, they say they sell drugs, they basically sell people, but they drug people up basically, and that's why drugs is is such a commodity, okay, because it's a gatekeeping to do something with this human that now you own them, okay. And this is done through both organized crime, but mostly people are addicted to subscribe drugs today. Okay, it's not the opiate wars. It's more like you went through violence, let's say at work, whether it's a Me Too case or it was a war veteran, and you say, well, I need to function, I need to this, okay, take Xanax. Then you get addicted to Xanax, and now you can't get it on prescription, but there's a person at the local pizza that can sell you that. Oh, but maybe you will just work a couple of shifts. It's at the pizza. You get paid at the pizza. You get paid minimum wage. It's okay. It's no problem. Like, okay, maybe I will do that. And now you're already not only consuming, but you are part of a crime organization. And sometimes you just go to work and you don't know that you work for crime organization, but you get sick and you get tired and you don't know, people thinking you are lazy, why don't you show up to work? Okay, this is Pisces. This is Pisces. So with Saturn in Pisces, we are going to uncover or basically what happens, the things leak. Okay, leakage is very Pisces word, is very Neptune word, or you could say Jupiter as Pisces is leaking knowledge, whereas Jupiter in Sagittarius is spreading knowledge like fire spreads through the woods. Okay, and so secrets leak with Neptune. You can have a person who was missing for 3 decades suddenly popping up somewhere. And like, how the fuck did that happen? The workings of Neptune. Okay, so you think about the fishes that suddenly pop up at the shore from the sea and they show up in another place and another place. We actually had before, a couple of months before the war, we had a seal that was in Gaza, in Israel, in Lebanon, and in Turkey. Okay, so she popped up in Gaza and she rested. Then people put her back to the sea. And she popped up in Israel and she rested. People put her back to the sea. And she popped up in Lebanon. She popped up in Turkey. Okay? That thing happened. And think about the omen. That thing was happening actually around the ingress of Saturn to Gemini when I think about this. And Signa is also the goddess of secrets. But that thing was happening around the ingress of Saturn to Pisces. And you think about the lack of boundaries there, okay? Because a seal can be one day on the shores in Gaza and one day on the shore in Tel Aviv. It's no problem. She doesn't know maritime borders, okay? And you think about what is this bringing to us and how today when people look at this conflict like, oh, Israel is doing genocide, or oh, nobody pays attention to our little Holocaust there that happened on 7th of October. And but eventually it's like, it really is all Schwabland. There really is no difference whether it's Gaza, whether it's southern Israel, whether it's Jerusalem now, about to be popping, West Bank. It doesn't, it's real estate. It's business. So for Netherlands, we said, oh, farts of cows, environment. They like environment. For Maui, natural disaster. What will you tell to Maui? Natural disaster. Israel, Palestine, of course. What's the problem? Israel, you kidnap so-and-so people and you can do everything you want. You can bomb Gaza, you can bomb this, you can bomb that. Okay, where are they kidnapped? We don't know. 200 people, children, elderly, women. Okay, so many people, children, elderly people bombed in Gaza. Okay, so with this hidden faces of the very same thing, Saturn direct in Pisces is going to add a flair of the holistic view, but because it's not about the international conflicts, okay, more about medicine, more about crime organization, okay, more about spies and spyings, okay, things leaking. Now, because of the conjoining of, because Pluto is in Saturn sign and Saturn is in Neptune sign, and because Neptune and Pluto sextile for a millennia now, not millennia, but really a couple of decades at least. And because Pluto is nuclear and Neptune is leaking, then yes, there can be nuclear leakage. Okay, nuclear energy leakage. It can happen. I'm not saying for sure this is going to happen, but it can happen. Okay, we also see water being poisoned, which was footages from Gaza that the water was poisoned. which is incredibly disturbing and a very, very risky strategy to do, because those things tend to leak. With Neptune you surrender, and Saturn is also ruling karma, so it's very, very bad strategy. And I was concerned about Israel because I knew that there are places where Israel would take the water from people that were Palestinian civilians, and this is a very, very, very bad thing to do. It's not just about war crime, atrocity, this, atrocity, that. It's just like Israel itself is reliant on water supply and is not allowed to collect rainwater. So this is something very, very unhappy that's happening here, and the soldiers were trying to talk about it. They were being silenced. And it's a part of why veterans are not being well treated. In the United States, a lot of veterans are homeless. And all of these things kind of popping, because it really is about leakage of atrocities here that are committed structurally by the government, and and that entails waves, sea pollution, leakage of nuclear energy, displacement of populations, okay, so people becoming refugees. I found myself doing a free reading for people who were evacuated from their homes. One day watching Maui, and I was lucky enough to be exposed to what's happening there, partially, very partially. And then the other day, you're given a reading to a family that was evacuated from a village next to you, and you understand they had, let's say, Aries in the fourth house. So they were heading to be evacuated, and you realize that you have these compositions as well with your family. You're like, okay, I don't know what's going on. But it's very, it's very real astrology. This astrology thing is very real. And I have not finished the episode with Aries and inclusivity. I will really tend to that. So those are all things that we can associate with Saturn. And you see that when we're talking about the world, it's very big, okay? But then to be evacuated from your home around, some signification has to trigger it, whether it's eclipse cycle, so you're destined to be moving, okay? When Avi was in between homes during COVID, it happened with the eclipse on my Chiron, okay? Rahu was on my Chiron, it was my Rahu return, Rahu was on my Chiron, and then when the moon triggers that, okay, first I had to run away, and then when the moon triggers that, I was one night in the street. I remember I looked at my phone and I was like, the square and Neptune and all my this, and that was my way of coping with this. And I was like, okay, this fated event. I was like, yeah, probably could have been avoided to be in this way, but that was the way to look at it back then. So it doesn't mean that everybody will be evacuated, but it happens around cycles of eclipses. It happens around whether it's perfection years, and you need certain significations for that to be Saturn. If Pisces is your fourth house, this can absolutely happen. So the significations are abundant, but it doesn't just happen to people without any astrological signification, probably. So now to the personal, because in the personal, first of all, do you have any planets in Pisces in the first 10 degrees of Pisces? Because if you don't, then and you don't have placements in Pisces, and your Jupiter is not somehow like bombarded with bad aspects, or in a situation where Saturn hard aspects it in transit, then you're probably not going to feel it as much. Okay, you're just going to feel that something around your Pisces that was unstructured becomes a bit more maybe rigid, or even maybe some structure we let go of. So you could just check up at your dentist. If it's your first house, you could be, oh, if it's not your dentist, then maybe you would do a pedicure. Okay, it's like, oh shit, I see, I really need to do a pedicure, and then you schedule with the pedicure. Okay, it can absolutely be something like that. So first house, Pisces ascendants, it can both be your life paths. Okay, you understand more about your life path. And if you need to niche down in what you're doing in life, then you're gonna have some more realizations on how to do that and to take it step by step. It can also be a physical body in Pisces. It rules feet, it rules the legs and so on and so forth. But Pisces ruling the feet. So whether it was getting yourself new shoes, whether it was um, the health of your feet, the structure, because Saturn is structure, it could be the bones. So like me, kind of separate your toes and see that there's a lot of work to do here, and it's going to be taking time and maybe tending to the holistic, okay, changes that happen. Saturn in your first house might be changing your diet. Okay, it might be changing your diet. It might be doing something with your physical routine, okay, your physical body. I can't say that I recommend swimming with this particular one because there can be the risk of drowning or choking, but there's just something that you change about your physicality, okay, so to speak, or the way you appear in the world. Some changes, or maybe something you do to your skin, take care of your skin more, or something like that. You see, it's very personal. It's not anything. uh, is there the risk of you, let's say, becoming a refugee or something like that? If it is something that is distinct for you in the life, but then that can be the case. But other than that, and even if you need to see where is your ascendant, because your most Saturn experiences are going to be when Saturn reaches your ascendant. Yes, when it is in the first house, you already feel, you already tend to it. But when it reaches your ascendant, there's a sort of a culmination of what this Saturn in Pisces is like for you. And then tend to the feet. If Saturn is in his second house, so that would mean you are ascendant Aquarius actually. Saturn in his second house is a house of income. So for you, the word, one of the examples that I gave about, oh wait, what are my taxes doing? Should I be paying taxes at this time? Um, what do I spend money on? How do I make money? What do I spend money on? Um, is it working for me? Does something need to change there? And remember, Saturn has like it has only begun its journey in Pisces. It has time. Okay, so you have time to work on these things, and we will have more retrogrades. So this was just the first retrograde of Saturn in Pisces. And so in your second house, you are applying certain things that needed to change in regarding to my values, how I make my money, what I spend my money on, my skills. And then you need to look at Jupiter. Where is Jupiter in your chart? And to some degree, perhaps, where is Neptune? If you have ascendant Capricorn, then Pisces is your third house. Okay. Um, So, but also Aries is your fourth, and you have Rahu in Aries. Okay, so this is something that for you could be significant when it comes to Schwabland. You really need to assess that because regardless of Saturn, you are going through change in your housing. Your house and home life must be inclusive, or else. Okay. whether it's somebody gained a family where it's a certain structure, or maybe somebody that looks different, or or simply your homeland. Okay, is also fourth house. If it's not inclusive, you must tend to it. You must do something about it. You see, I have the ruler of the fourth in my second. I constantly talk about being more inclusive in our homelands. Um, you know what I mean, okay? So I do tend to it. Now, for your third house, which is Saturn going direct in your third house, so this is communication. Um, and this is your daily routines, your siblings, your friends, close friends that are like brothers and sisters. And um, this creating, it could be creating more structure there, or could be really revealing who are your closest friend to you. Okay, with Neptune, you can be losing some people. Hopefully not to an atrocity, but it's not impossible. And with this situation, you will need to have a very holistic approach of setting boundaries in this place. What is your neighborhood? Okay. Saturn also rules witchcraft, and so if you have to set a boundary and around the Pisces house, what is your neighborhood, or surveillance or stuff like that, then this is where you would want to put some good magic to good use, to protect you and to protect the energy, because leaking of energy and boundaries are the issue when it comes to Saturn. Other than that, it's also ruling vehicles. So you could be having to tend to certain bureaucracy, whether it's renewing your insurance, or whether it's making certain decisions around expenses, or buying a new vehicle, or getting a driver license. Okay, all those things, the bureaucracies of the traveling you're doing, but to nearby places. Again, tending to your feet will assist you in those decisions. And ascendant Sagittarius. So Pisces is your fourth house. For you, with the co-presence of Saturn and Neptune in your fourth house and in this shrub-like thingy, then yes, you're one of the people who are susceptible to changes of residence. You need to understand what is the hidden atrocities regarding to the way that you're being registered. If you own real estate, okay, depending on when the ruler is, or your family owns real estate, if it's house, okay, for you, not just home life, then you need to understand, is your house listed where it's supposed to be listed on your name? What does it mean? Maybe you thought that you own the land and you don't own the land, okay? What are the contracts that are being, the long term, like 100 years contracts that this land belongs to this country, okay? Those things are changing, and as liquidity, okay? If you've been told or you've been presented that even if you have no money, you can take a loan, okay? Get in debt, Saturn is debt, and tenants will pay your housing for your loan, and so on and so forth, okay? This could be a burst bubble, or you could be considering such things, and now you understand what's actually going on. So it could be scams to do with real estate. So, if you have elders, okay, your mama, your papa, then you really need to make sure that they are not being approached by one of these scammy things or situations, especially regarding the estate, okay? And you're seeing this not as your inheritance, but more as your home life. So you will see it especially in this place when you're not the person who's concerned about, shall I inherit the house? So you're concerned not from inheritance point of view, but from the safety of your household point of view, actual housing. Okay, it's, inheritance is more 8th house. 4th house is more like genuine concern from what makes me happy and my family and my home life and my actual home. So those are significations that could be. Um, and due to these scammy things, like the Schwab scammies, then you might be displaced, you might have to relocate. So this can vary. Um, if you are, doing something, because Saturn is tending to your structure, your home, um, then you're having a reality check. Okay, what did you think the structure, this home is going to bring you? What is actually bringing you? Yes, there is the risk of losing somebody in the family, not or dying, but not necessarily. And yes, okay, you have to have other significations for that. Ascendant Scorpio. Pisces is your 5th house. And now this is very interesting because I've seen stuff about like, what if Saturn crosses my 5th? Will my baby die? Da, 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 da. Wait. Yes, Saturn can bring death, but Saturn, what did we say about Saturn? Saturn is the dedication that you put into something and you see results. So if you've been the type of person, let's say, tries to have a baby, okay, and it hasn't been successful, you've been tending to your fertility, you've been this, you've been that. Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter rules sperm. So first of all, check the sperm of the person who has sperm. Okay, so that can be your answer. Okay, if you're checking the person with the womb, maybe the person with the womb is no problem, but the person with the sperm can be. Um, And so this can be one of the options. The other option is that sperm count, you must look at it holistically. Okay, sperm count. How should I say it without you thinking that I'm blaming people for the disease? I'm not blaming people for the disease. I'm saying one of the cases in which you have problem with the sperm count. Jupiter rules your world philosophy, and now people are not to blame that they've been indoctrinated so and so and so and so and so. But if your person is, let's say, Jupiter rules religion, and let's say you and your husband are about to have a baby girl, okay, and your husband has this very traditional view of women. They have a place, they have a this, they have a that, and maybe even as they're not aware of this so much, it affects their sperm count, okay? It affects sperm count. Jupiter is the seed, it's the instinct to do good. Okay, it doesn't mean that people who have problem with the sperm count are thinking bad thoughts about women. Not at all. It can be the case that their food and nutrition is not healthy or is polluted, and so they have problem with the sperm count. It's all across the board. But again, you have to look holistically. If there is such a case that is problem with the sperm count and the person who's the sperm person, okay, is having certain thoughts or certain religious beliefs or certain worldview that is not supportive of the type of seed, okay, the type of children that you are supposed to be giving birth to, then there will be a problem. And maybe it's the partner, and maybe it's just the worldview. Okay? So you need to understand there is spirituality to these things. We can't ignore it. Okay? If I tended to my fertility, so I was more aware of what the Pfizer thingy that is interrupt with my menstrual system. And I was more aware of what's happening to children. They are kidnapped by the welfare. And I was more aware of missing children. And I was more aware of like what kind of a neighborhood school system. If I marry someone from another country, okay, what happens? And where would the children stay if we divorce? And so all of these things happen. And now there is a world war. So I'm almost 40. So is understandable why I'm not a mother at this time, okay? It's not my maktub to be a mother at this time currently with the location that I am and the time that I am and everything, because some of it is my choices, some of it is the situation. And now, but I want you to also understand that Saturn, in this case, if you're trying to conceive, it can actually be the conception because Saturn materializes. So that's not just death, it's also making something concrete. You want to have a baby now, you could be having a baby, you could get pregnant, or you could give birth at the time that Saturn goes through your fifth. How do you do Saturn remediation? I don't know. If you're a date chart, then Saturn is not that much difficult. And Jupiter is the benefic, so you could work with Jupiter. If your Jupiter is well aspected, maybe you could work with the Jupiter and talisman, Jupiter and Pisces. I don't know. And you would need to look at the moon. Okay. If your night chart can be more complicated because you would need maybe your moon, maybe through your moon you can do this, and you can support a fertility through your moon. But and this is where you have a bit of a reality check. So you address this reality check, and then if you were trying to have babies and it's good for you, you will have babies. Saturn in the fifth house can literally mean you are having a baby. You're materializing this process. You're going through labor, you're going through pregnancy, and you're bringing a child, your first child. Okay. Now, as for relationship with your children, maybe it's a child that is moving out. Okay, if it's a child that is now learning to live their own life, so they could be moving out, and you have to both have to get used to that child living outside in a separate place, a separate home. And is it about the possibility of losing a child? Yes, Saturn can also, unfortunately, mean this. And because of the world we are living in, there are many atrocities, there are many situations. So, an end is important for me to address this. Yes, Saturn in this case can mean a child going missing. Now, again, if not in conflict zone, if it's not, it's there are other significations for this, but a situation like what happened in Israel, that we have children that are going missing, and I'm sure in Palestine as well, then such a situation with this placement can happen. Child can go missing, okay, not knowing what's about the child. Now, you can scroll and watch my Neptune videos, Neptune honoring right then to the missing people, lighting a candle for the missing people, tending to this, being a part of communities. In Netherlands, there was Peter Adderfries that was tending to, for that it was crime cases of murder that was unresolved, but also his son now is tending to missing people. Okay, so you need to see around your region or international. Okay, maybe get connected with remote viewers. There are remote viewers that help people, and so by tending to it, but tending to the topic of missing children, raising awareness, taking part, being of contribution with what you can, you are basically are going through much of the spiritual experience that is the essence of this thing, and perhaps can be remedial. Okay, and that does not mean that if this happened to you, you are to blame, or you didn't do enough, or anything of that sort. Okay, very important. So, yeah, ascendant Libra. Ascendant Libra, Saturn is in your sixth house. So first of all, you have crossed the not first, but yes, the Libra eclipse, and you're still here. So, great release of something that was fated and perhaps caught you unprepared. But now we're talking about Saturn. Saturn in your sixth house. Okay. Unfortunately, this can also mean losing a pet or a pet going missing again. But you could lose an enemy. You can straighten things up with an enemy. Okay. You can tend to your physical health. Your physical health is an issue that you will need to tend to. Or you can take a pet. Okay, maybe you're taking a pet, growing fishes, I don't know. Saturn also rules agriculture, but here you need to look at your diet, what you're consuming, and you need to look at your workout. Again, because of the co-presence here of Neptune, I would not necessarily suggest swimming. It's not like don't swim. It's just like making sure that when you are swimming, you really are focused, you really are able to like the times well, and you're not disturbed by people, and you're doing it in a place that is safe for you. Okay? Because yes, Pisces is the water, is the ocean. But Pisces and Saturn here can be risky with those things. There is this need to surrender your health. So you could be a bit of losing your workforce, work ability, even unfortunately can be through a loss. Now there is a spiritual experience there, okay? So having your work ability limited can actually be not a bad thing. Okay, perhaps there was some work that you were thinking, oh, maybe I will go to work at the pizza, and you didn't know that this pizza place is being used, maybe even forcibly, for money laundering by drug cartel. And now you are exhausted for some godforsaken reason that you don't know, or maybe you had a food poisoning. You ate a fish and you had food poisoning, and you're like, I don't know what to do. I just wanted to get this job, and now they think I'm unprofessional. I don't do that, and you don't get the job. Okay, then the gain is your loss. And so as you tend to the food poisoning, you tend to the food industry, you tend to this, you tend to that, or maybe you're even at hospital sitting like this and watching television, and in television you see a show about the things you didn't know you have in your food. Okay, this really is fated events like this. So it could be some enmity that you have, and through this enmity you discover something. It could be your health situation, it can be a pet that you either lose or that you have, or that you adopt a pet. It's usually very recommended, whether you're going to grow a horse or you're going to grow some fishes, but this is very recommended because a lot of the lessons that you need to learn, you're going to learn through your pet, and this is a joyous way to grow and learn and care for something and take responsibility. I'm seeing this with my pets. Okay, I had a pet that adopted me, and now I'm cooking. Now that means I'm cooking nourishing food, so I'm cooking also for me. Bless you. And so that means that there's certain responsibilities that I have. I can't just, let myself go. And it came in the right time, in a place where I could take these responsibilities. Okay, other sixth house, but you understand what I mean. Okay. Ascendant Virgo. Pisces is your seventh house. And now with Saturn going through the seventh, people are like, am I going to get divorced? Am I going to lose my partner? You could get married. Okay, Saturn can mean commitment. Saturn rules the ring. It rules the marriage ring. It rules crystals. You could get married. You could get committed. But also, if your relationship is seventh house, okay, now you must understand. Rahu is heading towards your seventh house. It's now It's in your, um, yes, it is in your 8th house. And so it's less about you, more about relationship. But if you have, let's say, Jupiter in your 1st house, okay, or if you have Mars in your 1st house. So if you have been too much partnerishy, okay, if you've been too much me and my man, thank you for my man, okay, then or my girl, or what, or my baby, I don't know. So you're gonna have to tend to you now. You're gonna have to have a distinct identity, and it can be by losing a relationship, or it could be if for some reason your partner says, "I don't want you to talk about me. Don't talk about me," and then you have to find yourself. Okay, you have to be very distinct from your partner. Or alternatively, if you have been the loner, or and you must have had good reasons, okay? It's just like, oh, I want someone like this, someone like that. I want to be even the partner that, okay, we can be very idealistic. Then now Saturn is coming to your 7th house, and it's like, darling, isn't it about time that you dated somebody? It's like, well, there is a world war. Well, people do survive it better when they are falling in love and making good sex. And now it really is about what have you been doing, because Saturn is karma. If your karma is that you've learned about being alone and now you need to learn about being together, then you will meet another person. If your karma has been that you've learned about being together but now you need to learn about being alone, then this will happen. Okay? Now, because 7th house is also open enemies and business partner, then again, what is the lesson there? Okay? If you never had any people of the 7th that were your enemies and you never had to deal with any atrocity, then you could be learning about this. You could be experiencing suddenly a person that is like, why are they doing this? Why are they even doing this? And it's like, well, this is the experience of enmity. Okay, so now you need to protect yourself, to stand up for yourself. But can be a situation where you constantly have enemies, constantly this, constantly that. So people from the 7th house constantly are like, oh, and you're like, why is this thing happening? The Saturn could make it clear now. Saturn could make it, oh, either there's that pattern that I have been partaking in, or alternatively, it's karma. Okay, it's about time. It's enough. I've learned enough about this experience of having enmities. Now I just want to learn another experiences, like having a partner that's actually supportive. Never had this before. Never explored this before. It's a new story. When it comes to business, then again, if you've been messed up with people who are, crooked or whatnot, then either you're finding out like, oh, I've been partaking in a certain thing and I didn't know, or it simply is surrender. It's like you have explored this thing and now you move on. Okay, enough. Let's change. Like the story just changes for you. It's like, I wonder what it's like to be with a business partner that I actually feel good with, and it's actually real. It's really good. Or I wonder what it's like to have a partner that I feel okay with, that I feel great with, and we're actually okay. We're actually great. Okay? Saturn is going to bring that in. And there's a surrender with Pisces that can genuinely also act in your favor. It simply mean that you experience those things, now experience the other things. So, Ascendant Leo. For you, Pisces is the 8th house. And now this is a good time for you. You remember if you watched my introduction and I talked about, you've been working and working. And you see that every 30 years, 20 years, if you're lucky, 40 years, there's the crisis. And then everything that you've been told, everything that you saved and learned to invest in, everything like this, you lose it. And you're like, but what? You're like, yes, not to pay attention to the weather of the market, weather of the market, weather of the this, weather of the that. But I don't get to the brackets of investment that I'm even bulletproof to recession. What is going on? Okay, so Saturn has given you time to reassess. It's really giving you time to reassess things because now you're gonna be moving things. You're gonna have to sign things. Maybe you're even getting an inheritance. Um, or you're moving from making money to investing. And now it's time for you to learn about the ways in which you've been fooled. So, because it's Jupiter ruling this place, so your world is going to be highly affected by what Saturn is going to give you a reality check of. Okay, perhaps you have been investing in certain company that's medical companies, and you're like, oh, I don't know, my grand niece was their lives were saved because of this company. Now I'm invested in this company, and this is a good thing. And then you find out that along the years, this company has changed. And now is causing bad troubles to people. It's actually causing, maybe it's prescribing like beta blockers or stuff like this that are very, very harmful. Um, and it was missing because people couldn't talk about this, and people were considered conspiracy theorists if they dared. And so you realize that there's some certain changes that need to happen, um, and you really need to change the way that you've been investing money, or if you've been reliant on certain energy. Okay, it can be a reality check to whom am I relying on? Whom am I deriving energy, or who am I loaning money to? Which can also be on your eighth house. Okay, who am I loaning money to? Can also be, yes, you want to play with my hands. We need the eucalyptus again. Yes, I've been playing with branches. Oh, yeah. Nifia. So you might have a reality check on this. Maybe you have been too optimistic about people returning you your cash, but you also have to be compassionate because Pisces requires compassion and Saturn requires ownership. It's kind of like I have been in ideation about this. I take ownership of my ideation about this topic. Um, and because people say I take full responsibility, with some Pisces, you don't fool yourself, you're taking full responsibility. You don't even know what responsibility looks like in this placement. But you can say, I'm taking ownership about it. This has been my decision because it was exposed to me. And now I've seen other knowledge and I'm making changes. Okay? And you can also be compassionate for the motives of whatever was. This is another place where you could be susceptible to certain investments that are hoax, um, and be very cautious if you're advised to invest in something to do with medication or drugs. Then you must be very cautious and checking all the places because you could find yourself invested in a drug cartel. So yeah. Um, be careful, but you have time to tend to the Saturn, the entire Saturn in Pisces. Ascendant Cancer. Hello, how hanging in with this Aries squaring by sign and Pluto opposing by sign. This has been a rough patch and still on, but now we're actually talking about your ninth house and Saturn going through your ninth again. Saturn in your ninth can literally mean a pilgrimage. Okay, it means that if your karma is that you need to travel and you take a vacation, you will travel and take a vacation. If you've been doing the third house too much and not enough the ninth house, Saturn in the ninth house is going to bring you vacation, maybe even long-term vacation. And it can sometimes even be fated. And you can find yourself, you're one of these signs, you could find yourself, depending on how Jupiter is aspected and how your planets there are aspected, you can actually be in a situation where, like, now you have to go to exile. If it's Gemini is the ruler of the 12th, maybe not, but like, oh well, there is a flood. They're evacuating us. And and then you go to some hotel. And in this hotel, bless you. And in this hotel, it's actually a 5-star hotel, and you're like, oh, verdammt, I didn't even take myself on a Zimmer or on a hotel vacation for like 40 years or so. This could actually be your story. So there can be fated traveling, or you could be starting something with higher education, or finishing something with higher education. Okay? There can be loss attached. So it could be traveling due to a loss. You finish, I don't know, something due to a loss, or you have to quit on university due to a loss, or something like that. But there can be materializing of traveling. But then if you have been doing the ninth house, then you might settle in and you're in for a longer stay than you planned, and you'll just need to settle in. Again, if you have something transiting, like, Jupiter, no. If your natal Jupiter, let's say, is in Libra, then you could be traveling and thinking, oh, it's just a vacation, a couple of weeks, and then there's a flood and you can't come back and now you have to stay. And for a year or so. It's like, well, that's just the ruler of your ninth going through your, in your fourth, and now Saturn is materializing that. So your abroad becomes your homeland now. But that, again, you see the many significations for this to be. Anything more ninth house will be worth. Always get reality check. Sixth house is also is ruling your sixth and your ninth, and is in Taurus. So your worldview is changing because of something to do with work, or something to do with your pets, or certain enemies, your physical health, and reality checks to your physical health, and it's going to be quite public, your worldview. If you speak it, or if you're doing anything teaching, then your worldview is changing. But this is a very changing, it's a change that tends to your physical health. So through a certain physical ailment, your worldview changes, and Saturn in the ninth, it can bring more anxiety, more doom and gloom, okay? But if you've been overly optimistic, okay, if you've been the type of, like, you can create your own reality, and the person's literally escaped, I don't know, a genocide, then you're like, okay, perhaps you've been incredibly lucky, and let's see how can we help you to process that. Yeah, because if you've been overly optimistic, Saturn is going to tone you down a notch. But if your Jupiter has been in Capricorn, and you have been pessimistic, then Saturn is going to materialize like, hey, did you know that you can create something of your own reality? Or look, there are certain things that are happening to you within the situation even that are good. Okay, so Saturn can give you the optimism within loss, as well as tone you down a notch when you're like, you can create your own reality. It's like, but we are having a Holocaust, but you can create your own reality. It's like, okay, let's tone you down a notch, but within that, you're going to actually materialize a practical worldview that is actually constructive to you, and your health is going to be involved. Or is something to do with your pets or your work as a service to the world. Doesn't have to be work you get paid for, or some open enemies or something like that. You're dealing with a certain enemy, and you're like, why is this bothering me? Why is this bothering me? Just certain sort of fatedness to this. But it ends up you're teaching, and it ends up in the 11th. So you could be overcoming this and then talking about how you change your views. In the 11th, you can actually gain money from that. Okay, so tending to your feet will assist you in it. It could downright be your feet, your leg, like a bum, kind of like involved with the position of your bone structure in your legs, your feet, your bum, affecting your worldview. And then you could be like, oh, I did not know that that thing that happens in sexuality affects my worldview that much, and stuff like that. Let's talk about it in the 11th house is Taurus. And ascendant Gemini. Pisces is your 10th house. So, again, can be one of the parents, you as a parent. You see with the situation, you could get a promotion. Because Saturn is like bringing you that responsibility. You could get a promotion. You could become a parent. Or your social, the way you look to the world, okay, your public persona and status can be in for a reality check. So it can go up a notch, but it can also tone down a notch. If you've been the type of person, and with Jupiter in Taurus, it's a lot about how your worldview has been around. Land, women, art, with the co-presence of Uranus, maybe the type of technology around food, environmentalism, or just like mixed gender, transgender women, stuff like that, sisterhood, but also banking, and it's like assets, values. So if you've been doing it good, Saturn's gonna materialize. You're gonna have a stack. You're gonna be known for something like this. Okay. If you've been up until now, you didn't get it when it comes to treatment, then now you gotta make the necessary changes when Saturn is in very public place for you. Okay, it's crossed your 9th house. You haven't changed your worldview. Now it's going to affect your reputation. So you could both be reaping up the fruits of having a great worldview around matters of Taurus. Okay, and now your status is good. Okay, if your worldview, let's say your worldview around women, this is a bedroom. Okay, this is the 12th house. Your worldview around the bedroom. Okay, your worldview around the bedroom is always been this. I'm going to treat my partner right. I'm going to honor them, and I'm also not going to ignore myself and my sensuality. I'm doing pretty good in there. I think I have this renewed sense of energy, so you get a promotion, but it doesn't go way over your head because you're like, you're grounded. Okay, you're more grounded. Well, if this has been a situation where things have not been going in the sense that your worldview has been affecting your bedroom negatively. You could be publicly held accountable for that. That can be various things. Okay, it can be a sexist joke that went wrong. It can be a kind of a lapsus. It can be mild things, and it can be terrible things. Again, I don't know you, but you must understand that Jupiter in Taurus means your worldview, philosophy, religion in relation to assets, land, women, voice, sensuality, women singing, all of that. And Saturn is going to really and you've had time to assess this. Okay? You made it good. It's going to get, and even if Saturn tones you down, it's not the end of the world. Saturn will be in Pisces. You can change that. You can tend to that. Because Pisces is a compassionate sign. Okay, so You can change that and you can tend to that, and you'll be okay. We're meant here to evolve. Um, in rarities, there can be imprisonment, hospitalization, or exile. Okay, this is one of the signs that is prone to exile. So you could be refugee. Okay, I don't know where you live. In this case, it's imperative that you do anything in your power that you will be in a land that treats women well. Okay, especially for you, women singing, LGBTQ. Okay, this is especially for you. Women having wealth, women, Jupiter is also opportunities, so opportunities for women. Maybe you are a woman, but also even if you are a man, it doesn't matter. It's very imperative, because if you are in exile, you might be forcibly exiled to a land that's treating women well, but unfortunately can also be exiled to a land that's mistreating women well, and it's important to tend to that. Or the 12th house charity for women, and you want to tend to the women themselves, not the funds. Or if you have no choice, then you donate some money to the fund that is in favor of women, and you see what the omens that you begin to get. You will begin to locate the women themselves, women, sisters, or trans women, or something like this. So this is where K12 house charity, and paying attention that if it's exile, then do anything in your power that this land treats women well, even if you are a man. Okay, because this will highly affect your experience in exile. If it is hospital or jail, then perhaps it is you came there to do revolution. Okay, with Uranus, you came there to do revolution to make it better. You're not having this experience for no reason, if God forbid this is the situation. Ascendant Taurus. So Jupiter is in your first house, and Saturn is entering your 11th house. And now, not unlike Ascendant Gemini, 11th house is also a very public place. And so, but now, that which happens in the 11th comes to you. Maybe you're giving a Zoom lecture in a conference. But this is more like a series, more like a course, okay? Because Saturn is not one time, it's not a short transit. It's also where we do crowdfunding. So again, if you've been, what are you changing in the world? Okay, your agendas. Now these agendas are turning to you, both but the merit of the ruler of the 11th being in your first house. So now you really have a great chance to feel whether your ideas are practical, because now feel it on your body, on your life path. If your ideas are impractical, even before Saturn arrived in Pisces, you would be feeling this on your body, and you would have to change your voice, literally. But with the presence of Saturn, then again, if your agendas, if your the changes that you're bringing to the world, even your circle of friends or Facebook groups, even. Oh, Facebook groups. Okay, there's a lot of maturation. You know, but if I think about even stuff like Twitter or this or that, in just 1 month, people were faced with a topic where everybody felt like they have to take a stand, and suddenly you know where everybody stands. Whether you like it, you don't like it, okay, you block them, you don't block them, they block you, but suddenly you know everybody where everybody stands, and you will be experiencing this, especially where you stand. And so again, you could actually gain in these social circles. People will turn to you, people will appreciate you, but you will also lose some people, okay? People will call you on conferences because of a social stand you made around, let's say, women, let's say, finances, okay, or those things. Or you could, perhaps you're a Ukrainian or Israeli, okay, with this. If you actually live come from these countries, then perhaps being um, expelled from your social group. Like, we don't want anything with this person. Are they from Ukraine? Are they from these are tourist related countries? Oh, we don't want anything from them. No, we cancel your speech. Or this. So now, dealing with the implications you're coming from, who you are because it's your ascendant, or your worldview. If you've been too optimistic, Saturn is going to take care of that. But if you have been um, in your right mind, you can also gain a lot of wealth, and unfortunately through losses. And so if you've been doing Saturn, if you've been doing worldview correctly, and again, it's not about blame or shame or that. It's like even if we are correct in our worldview, is sometimes fated, okay? So if that's been going on well for you, you will see that you will gain publicity, you will gain even income crowdfunding, and you will advance yourself. You will begin to implement your agenda. You will begin to implement your agenda. Maybe you want to build some dams differently, I don't know. Kick a structure in the water. So it will actually materialize. Now, ascendant Aries. Aries, first of all, you must be learning anything you can about inclusivity. Anything else, think about the people who are born different, whether they're feasibility, divergence, people that have been marginalized and dealt with corruption. All of these Aries archetypes must learn about this, because you came here to do something. Maybe you are certain, especially at these times. So this is important. But Saturn is in your 12th with Jupiter in your 2nd. Your loss could be your gain. Maybe you are sent. You're also, because Pisces 12th house. You see how it goes for Gemini. Jupiter, the ruler, was the 12th in the 12th in Taurus, so they could be exiled. But because Pisces is directly a 12th house, even if Jupiter, the ruler, is in the 2nd, then you could also experience isolation or retreat, hospitalization, or jailing, or exile, okay, those things. Or you could be having some sexual fantasies incarnated in the bedroom. It's also the bedroom. Okay, your loss can be your gain. So, for example, you're in a situation where you are in exile. You know, in COVID, when I was Aquarius is my 12th house, and Saturn was in my 12th house, and was my Saturn maturation and Saturn square. I was in a and they're next to the show, and so we went to hospital, and from the give channelings to people, and I couldn't access the money. They pay me, but in money that came to Israel. Okay, and so I both made money and couldn't spend it. So when I had to return to Israel, I had money, not a lot, but I made money, and so it was very funny that I had no housing, but I was making some money. And so you could be having one of these situations. Maybe you're in exile, maybe you're evacuated, maybe yeah, but your loss is your gain. And with Pisces, it is your gain either because you teach something or because you learn something and then teach it, or maybe you will write a book, and then because you will write a book, then you will become famous and you will genuinely gain. With the second house, you can be making assets. Okay, you can gain skill and make assets while you're having this 12th house experience. It can also be a situation where you retreat to yourself and you learn some, I don't know, how to sexually please yourself and have astral sex with all kinds of deities, and then you write a book about it, or you teach it in some way, or you write an album about this, and then you make money. Okay, it really it can be all of those, um, all of those. When you think about it, it can be all of those. So experiences of the 12th bring you gain. It doesn't mean that there isn't loss involved. Okay, so again, and here you could find about your unconscious beliefs around money. Unconscious, 12th, second, assets. Okay, conscious or unconscious values that you have. Okay, you're trying to have a scene even with your partner, trying to go to light examples here, and then for some reason you don't enjoy something and you realize, oh, I didn't know that this is a value for me. In other cases, like I said, 12th house, something to gain. House, these people that found themselves was in the business, could be one of these. Granted that you don't die, of course. It's not a significant, but you need a lot of significations to say. So yeah, 12th house charity for you. So 12th house charity, things of Pisces sort, contributing to refugees, but to the refugees themselves. Or if you don't know, then donate something to the refugee, I don't know, funds, and set intention, and then you will learn how to get to the refugees themselves. Those things can be very, very helpful. I think Saturn is direct. Not yet. Yes, in about in a couple of minutes actually. It's 15, not normal. I think no more than 15 minutes Saturn is going direct. But now I will wish it, and yeah. So I hope this was useful.